is not Barack Obama. Who was the person behind the order to former FBI Director James Comey to close the Hillary's email leak investigation, and FBI has quickly redirected to investigating collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia to influence the outcome of the 2016 presidential election? Let's explore the truth and find out the answer to this question in today's video. Welcome to the WLT47 YouTube channel. Donald Trump's 2016 presidential victory sent shockwaves throughout America and the world. Most of all, it devastated the Democrat Party, which could not accept that former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, the Democrats' anointed next president, had lost to President Trump. We're only now finding out just how panicked the Democrats really were over the prospect of a Trump White House. But two men have for years been leading the charge to expose the dirtiest political trick in American history. Above all others, two people have long spoken out against and exposed this narrative: FBI Director Kash Patel and Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley. And thankfully, they're still on the case. Trump-Russia collusion is being investigated by FBI. James Comey confirmed for the first time that the agency is investigating possible collusion between the Trump campaign and Moscow to influence the outcome of the presidential election in House hearing on March 20, 2017. James Comey had previously refused to comment on the existence of any such investigation, but addressing the House Intelligence Committee, Comey reversed course and said he had been authorized to depart from that policy and give some basic details. The counterintelligence investigation into Trump-Moscow links began in late July 2016 and is still ongoing. However, Comey and Rogers refused to answer scores of questions speculating on who in Trump's orbit could be part of the wide-ranging investigation, and spurned countless invitations to comment on news reports. But they made many key points over the course of several extraordinary hours of testimony.
Mr. Schiff, gentlemen, in my original questions to you, I asked you whether the intelligence community had undertaken any sort of study to determine whether Russian interference had had any influence on the electoral process, and I think you told me the answer was no.
Correct.
Correct. We said the U.S. intelligence community does not do analysis or reporting on the U.S. political process or U.S. public opinion. That is not our fault.
So thanks to the modern technology that's in front of me right here, I've got a tweet from the president an hour ago saying the NSA and FBI tell Congress that Russia did not influence the electoral process. So that's not quite accurate, that tweet.
I'm sorry, I haven't been following anybody on Twitter while I've been sitting here.
I can read it to you. It says the NSA and FBI tell Congress that Russia did not influence the electoral process. This tweet has gone out to millions of Americans, 16.1 million to be exact. Is the tweet, as I read it to you, the NSA and FBI tell Congress that Russia did not influence the electoral process, is that accurate?
Yeah. Well, it's hard for me to react to that. Let me just tell you what we understand the state of what we've said is. We've offered no opinion, have no view, have no information on potential impact because it's never something that we looked at.
Okay. So it's not too far of a logical leap to conclude that the assertion that you have told the Congress that there was no influence on the electoral process is not quite right.
Right. It certainly wasn't our intention to say that today because we don't have any information on that subject. And that's not something that was looked at.
Right.
Admiral Rogers, before I yield back to the ranking member, there's another tweet that says NSA Director Rogers tells Congress unmasking individuals endangers national security. My understanding was, as a member of the committee, that there is a lengthy and very specific process for the unmasking, but that it does not inherently in of itself endanger national security.
I assume the comment is designed to address the leaking of such information. But again, I have not read what you're saying to me, so I'm not in a position to comment on it, sir.
Thank you. I'll yield back to the ranking member.
Comey repeatedly stressed the unusual nature of the occasion, which led him to break with long-standing FBI practice of never commenting on ongoing investigations. I have been authorized by the Department of Justice to confirm that the FBI, as part of our counterintelligence mission, is investigating the Russian government's efforts to interfere in the 2016 presidential election, Comey said. DOJ Attorney General Loretta Lynch, who directed FBI Director James Comey to open the Trump and Russia collusion investigation in late July 2016. As report, Hillary Clinton email investigation. In early March 2016, the FBI reportedly received a highly classified Russian government document earlier obtained by hackers working with Dutch intelligence. The document, which was considered genuine but had possible translation issues, had purportedly contained a memorialization of an email sent by Debbie Wasserman Schultz to Leonard Bernardo that had allegedly referenced a conversation between Lynch and Amanda Renteria. One of the allegations within the document reportedly said that Renteria had been assured that Lynch would keep the Hillary Clinton investigation from going too far. On June 27, 2016, Lynch and former President Bill Clinton met privately aboard Lynch's Justice Department jet while it was parked on the tarmac in Phoenix. Why did Bill Clinton meet with DOJ Attorney General? Amid an ongoing investigation into Hillary Clinton's use of email, and hours before the public release of the Benghazi report, U.S. Attorney General Loretta Lynch met privately with former President Bill Clinton. The private meeting took place on the west side of Sky Harbor International Airport on board a parked private plane. Sources tell ABC 15, Clinton was notified Lynch would be arriving at the airport soon and waited for her arrival. Lynch was arriving in Phoenix for a planned visit as part of her national tour to promote community policing. The private meeting comes as Lynch's office is in charge of the ongoing investigation and potential charges involving Clinton's email server. The private meeting also occurred hours before the Benghazi report was released publicly involving Hillary Clinton and President Obama's administration.
Well, new controversy surrounding the Clintons after former President Bill Clinton visited Loretta Lynch on board a private plane at a Phoenix airport Monday evening. Lynch is overseeing, as you may recall, the FBI investigation into his wife's use of private email server while she was Secretary of State. Lynch insists that they did not discuss the probe.
Well, I did see the president at the Phoenix airport the other night. As I was landing, he was headed out. He did come over and say hello and speak to my husband and myself and talk about his grandchildren and his travels and things like that. So that was the extent of that. And no discussions were held in any cases or anything of that. And he didn't raise anything about that either. My agency is involved in a matter looking at State Department policies and issues. It's being handled by career investigators and career agents who always follow the facts and the law and do the same thorough and independent examination in this matter that they've done in all. So that's how that'll be handled.
Justice reporter Paula Reed is joining us now in Washington. Paula, what are the details that your sources are saying about exactly what went down at this meeting?
It sounds like former President Clinton really put the Attorney General in a difficult position when he saw that she was at the same airport. He wanted to stop by to say hello, despite the fact that she is currently overseeing an investigation into whether or not Hillary Clinton's private server resulted in the mishandling of classified information. Now, former President Clinton and his foundation are also tangentially involved in that investigation. And it appears that once he got on the plane, it was really up to the Attorney General to handle this very difficult, very awkward situation by doing something very difficult and awkward, and that is asking him to leave her plane, telling him, look, not the time, not the place, we could talk after the investigation. But Rena, she did not do that. They had a chat. They chatted for several minutes about golf, they say, and grandchildren. But as a result of this meeting, as a result of those discussions, they now face considerable political problems.
A lot of people buzzing about this one. So the bottom line, Paula, really is this meeting was not scheduled.
An aide to former President Clinton tells us that this meeting was not scheduled. When he realized that she would be at the airport, he wanted to say hello. They say that this is a courtesy that he extends to many dignitaries. Now, she does have an FBI security detail, and while they will certainly turn away strangers or any unscheduled guests, it is very difficult for them to, of course, turn away the former president of the United States. So it's really up to the Attorney General to put a stop to this meeting, to ask him to leave the plane, and she did not do that. And as a result, they're really facing quite a firestorm today.
I'm curious, Paula, about how this is going to impact the investigation going forward. Even before this happened, I know Senator John Cornyn had called for a private investigator, a special prosecutor to look into this. Do you think that those calls will be heard?
That's the big question here, Rena. There's no more controversial or high-profile national security investigation in the country, and it's been plagued with questions since the very beginning about whether or not Attorney General Loretta Lynch and the Department of Justice can objectively investigate this. So the optics with this meeting really sort of do call into question whether or not they can now. Previously, the Attorney General has said repeatedly that this case is being handled by experienced prosecutors. They'll look at the facts and they'll make a recommendation to her. This is just how the Petraeus investigation was also handled. But it is ultimately up to her whether or not to agree and act on that recommendation or whether or not to go in a different direction. And that's the final question here, Rita, is whether or not she will still be the person to make that ultimate decision Experts tell me it is very unlikely that she would be removed from the case. Marina, I'll tell you, this case, the Hillary Clinton investigation into her server and whether or not classified information was mishandled, it is unlike any other case in the U.S.
It's certainly getting a lot of attention, too. But while I have you, Paul, I want to ask you, give us a little bit of an update here. What is the latest on the FBI investigation into Clinton's private email server?
We're told the investigation is in its final stages. FBI Director James Comey says he keeps close to the investigation. He gets regular updates, but we haven't been given any timeline about whether or not we'll get a resolution before the conventions or even before the election. Now, what's really interesting is usually if you do not charge someone, you don't come out and announce, we decided not to charge them because. And we've repeatedly asked the head of the FBI, will you make an exception here? If you decide not to bring charges against Hillary Clinton or anyone else in this case, will you issue a final report? And he used to tell us, no, I will not. But the last time we asked him about a month ago, he said he's not sure. So, Rena, it's really unclear when, if ever, we'll get a resolution to this case.
I know a lot of people very curious about this and the timing as well. Paula Reed, who covers the Justice Department for us in Washington. Paula, thanks for joining us.
James Comey said, Lynch told me not to call probe of Clinton emails an investigation. On June 8, 2017, Comey says he felt queasy after Lynch directive on Hillary email probe. I wanted to know, was she going to authorize us to confirm we had an investigation? And she said, yes, but don't call it that. Call it a matter, Comey recalled. That concerned me because that language tracked the way the campaign was talking about the FBI's work, and that's concerning. Comey says Lynch tarmac meeting, directive to downplay probe prompted him to go rogue on Clinton case.
Let me go back, if I can, very briefly, to the decision to publicly go out with your results on the email. Was your decision influenced by the Attorney General's tarmac meeting with the former President Bill Clinton?
Yes, in a ultimately conclusive way. That was the thing that capped it for me, that I had to do something separately to protect the credibility of the investigation, which meant both the FBI and the Justice Department.
Were there other things that contributed to that you can describe in an open session?
There were other things that contributed to that. One significant item I know the committee's been briefed on. There's been some public accounts of it, which are nonsense, but I understand the committee's been briefed on the classified facts. Probably the only other consideration that I guess I can talk about in an open setting is that at one point the Attorney General had directed me not to call it an investigation, but instead to call it a matter, which confused me and concerned me. But that was one of the bricks in the load that led me to conclude I have to step away from the department if we're to close this case credibly.
Director, my last question.
The special counsel investigation ran from May 17, 2017 to March 22, 2019, and resulted in 34 indictments, including against several former members of the Trump campaign, and many of which are still being tried. The investigation issued over 2,800 subpoenas, executed almost 500 search warrants, and interviewed approximately 500 witnesses. Oh my God. Unbelievable. The Mueller report included references to 14 criminal investigations that were referred to other offices, 12 of which were completely redacted in the April 18 release. The other 2 related to Michael Cohen and Gregory Craig, cases that were already public. Thanks for watching. Don't forget, click like and subscribe to WLT 47 YouTube channel. See you in the next video.